What if Tony Ferguson never tripped on that cable wire? The date is April 1st, 2018, just 1 week before Khabib Nurmagomedov is finally taking on Tony Ferguson. It is the fourth time this fight has been booked. It's going to get booked for a fifth time later on as well, but this fight just seems to be absolutely cursed. So we start off with April 7th, 2018, the night of UFC 223, and we finally get the long-awaited, highly anticipated Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov for the UFC lightweight championship of the world. One of the most anticipated matchups of all time. Both guys seem to be like a stylistic matchup nightmare for each other. Khabib with his insane grappling, Tony Ferguson with his unpredictable striking, unorthodox style, and great jiu-jitsu off the back. The fight lives up to all the expectations. It's a back-and-forth affair. Khabib having his moments, taking down Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson landing elbows in the clinch and from his guard. It's a crazy fight. We enter round 5, and Khabib is up 3-1, but it's chaos. Anything can happen. And then in round 5, Khabib goes for another takedown on Tony Ferguson. He gets it. And what does Tony Ferguson do? Throws up a triangle choke and submits Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib suffers his first career loss, and Tony Ferguson is your undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. So Tony Ferguson now has the undisputed belt, but things are not going to get easier for him. One, Khabib will be back. We know Khabib ended up becoming one of the greatest fighters of all time. This loss is not going to deter him off his MMA track. He will be back wanting a rematch. And two, the notorious Conor McGregor is at lightweight, and that is a fight we have to see. Absolute cinema. And Conor McGregor may already be a rich man at this point, but Dana White is very good at his job. He gets a negotiation done. We get our dream fight. Prime Tony Ferguson versus prime Conor McGregor. It doesn't get much better than this. This is cinema once again. And in the pre-fight press conference, the hype is through the roof. I'm talking Khabib versus Conor level hype, except the trash talk is even better. These guys don't like each other. Tony's just being such a clown in the press conference. Conor's getting mad, but he's also being funny. The hype for this fight is to another level we have never foreseen. And then in the fight, Conor McGregor's doing what Conor McGregor does. Round 1, round 2, absolutely dominating Tony Ferguson. He's too crisp, he's too quick, he's too precise. Tony Ferguson's striking defense isn't entirely there. It is a McGregor show. Mystic Mac is in full effect, and Tony Ferguson has absolutely no answers. But we know what Tony does. He survives. Tony Ferguson can take damage better than anyone. His chin is great. He survives, but he's getting beat up bad. Round 1 is a 10-8. Round 2 is a clear 10-9. Tony Ferguson, already going into round 3, needs a finish to win this fight. But then round 3 comes along, and the tide begins to change. Conor McGregor isn't bouncing enough. He isn't in that karate hoppy stance he's usually in. He's a little more flat-footed. His strikes are a little more labored. And Tony Ferguson's still there. He's smiling in his corner, standing, jumping around, blood flowing throughout his face. He is ready to go because when it gets late in the deep waters, that is where it's Tony time. Tony thrives in those situations. Round 3, Tony Ferguson gets a toughly contested win. 10-9 Tony Ferguson. We're going into round 4, and Conor McGregor is looking gassed in his corner. John Kavanagh is yelling at him, you gotta pull through, you gotta pull through. Conor McGregor looks dejected. Tony Ferguson doesn't even sit in the corner. He's standing, bouncing around. He wants the fight to continue right away. And then round 4 is where Tony Ferguson officially cements himself as one of the biggest superstars in UFC history by being the first man to knock out the notorious Conor McGregor. It's a TKO. Conor McGregor shelling up against the cage. He's tired. He can't defend himself. Tony Ferguson, nasty body shots. He drops Conor McGregor. Elbows on the ground. Herb Dean steps in. Tony Ferguson defends his undisputed belt and becomes the first guy to finish Conor McGregor with strikes. So at this point, Tony Ferguson is an absolute superstar. He has supplanted Conor McGregor as the biggest name in the UFC. Canelo Alvarez wants to box him. He's doing all the commercials. He's on Good Morning America. He's doing big-time interviews. Tony Ferguson is the biggest man in combat sports. So you may be asking yourself, where does El Cucuy go from here? The boogeyman needs his next opponent, and you know who's knocking on the door. Khabib Nurmagomedov has slowly been climbing back up the ranks, racking up his wins. He's now looking at a 27-1 record, and he wants revenge on Tony Ferguson, and he's the betting favorite. The hype for this fight is astronomical. People are calling it the fight of the century. Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson are both coming off finished wins over Conor McGregor. People have no idea who's going to win this. Khabib's a slight favorite. People say Tony Ferguson's got too much money. It's got to his head. He's not training as hard. He's inactive. And Khabib is hungrier. This fight is going to be amazing. So the stage is set. The biggest rematch in UFC history. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov 2. And what happens, you may ask? Tony Ferguson, round 1, flying triangle, submits Khabib Nurmagomedov once again, solidifies himself as the greatest mixed martial artist of all time and the biggest name in combat sports history. Tony Ferguson then goes on to defend his belt twice against Dustin Poirier, once against Justin Gaethje, once more against Conor McGregor, and twice against Charles do Bronx Oliveira, solidifying himself as easily the greatest lightweight of all time and firmly in the GOAT conversation, with most people acknowledging that he has surpassed guys like John Jones, Anderson Silva, and George St. Pierre. So to recap everything, if Tony Ferguson never tripped on that cable wire, he would have beat Khabib Nurmagomedov, he would have beat Conor McGregor, he would have beat Khabib in the rematch, he would have beat Conor McGregor in the rematch, he would have beat Dustin Poirier 2 more times, beat Justin Gaethje, and beat Charles Oliveira twice, firmly solidifying himself as the greatest mixed martial artist of all time, and quite possibly the greatest athlete that this earth has ever seen. And I don't think any of this is that crazy. If you saw Prime Tony, you know Prime Tony could handle anybody. If he didn't trip on that wire, come on now. This guy would have been the GOAT easily. I know what you're going to say. 8-fight loss streak. This isn't realistic. He always would have lost to Khabib. He was never that good. You just don't know ball. You don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea how good Tony Ferguson was. You have no idea. Tony Ferguson, if he doesn't trip on that cable wire, if Khabib doesn't have to pull out for his weight cut issues, if the whole situation in 2020 didn't happen where that fight got canceled too because of Khabib's travel restrictions, Khabib would have lost, Tony would have won, and Tony Ferguson is sitting on your Mount Rushmore of athletes in any sport. So that is your answer to what if Tony Ferguson never tripped on the cable wire. I hope you guys like this video. Make sure to subscribe. If you like these kind of videos, let me know, and let me know what kind of videos you want to see in the comments. Thank you.